so we're gonna put in some columns in, no shade. Yes. Yes, I am. I just started recording. I am recording, yes. Okay, so let's say we have 4 over there, and then I'm gonna make a copy and rotate these guys over here, 90 degrees. Let's say we have the same, we add one more there with, I don't know, 4,000, there, oops. 4,000, okay, over there. As you can see, it starts from 1, goes to 4, and then continues, so you can manually change these to whatever you want. As soon as you set one of them, the second one will be smart, and it will understand the sequence. But if you have copied a bunch of stuff from somewhere else, as you can see after A is showing B, but if you have copied the stuff from somewhere else, it does not have that smartness in it, so you need to go in and manually change them. So A, B, C, D, and E. Then you have probably a bunch of walls in your drawing, however you have them. Those are the walls. You have a floor. So let's just draw that. You have some interior walls. So there's a thing here, there's a thing there. This is not really good. Okay, we copy this over there. Make another wall. Maybe copying this over here. And then I want to trim these. Maybe I'll move this wall over there. And then that should go in. Okay, that's that. Let's put a few doors. And doesn't matter what they are, just want to put a few, and by now you guys know how to do all of these very easily and quickly. I'm going to place a window here. I'm not sure if we talked about how much we talked about arraying, but it's very simple and easy and useful in certain projects. So if you want to do an array, you can just say I want it to be grouped. I want 5 of these. I want to show where the last one will go there, and it doesn't work. Okay, last 5, copy over, there we go, oops, should have canceled. One more time, last, it's over here, picture, okay. Okay, great. Last thing I need to do is a roof on top, level 2, that offset a meter, picking all the walls, extending this guy out a little bit. None of them will have the slope. This one has the slope, but not 30, maybe 10. And that's that. And today I'm going to show you guys a little bit about the curtain walls. So for that reason, I'm going to make a few curtain walls here, and then I'll come back to them and show you how to work with them. Wall. This guy goes in. That guy goes in. Select both of them. Edit type. Make them embed. I want some layouts on them, so fixed distance. Fixed distance. This way it's a meter. The other way it's 2 meters. Okay, good, done. Let's go take a look at the 3D view. Okay, we got something to work with. Okay, good. Any questions so far, you guys? It was all clear. You guys already know how to do these stuff. Okay, so let's start with the annotation. First thing that is very important is to have grids. What we do usually is that we don't start with grids. We have a building designed somewhere and we bring it in. So then you have to decide where the grids are. In a case like this, it's the most easiest is to just do a grid like that. Very simple and easy, perpendicular to each other. If you have something at a certain angle, let's say there is a 30-degree angle between two wings on a building, and those are very important pieces. A lot of walls and columns are going to be called on an angle. So it's good to have some of these guys on that angle. So let's say these two walls that are going in this direction could define a wing over here, and I could rotate all my grids in that angle, like some of the examples that Branko showed in class. So you can have all different types of grids. Don't make it too crazy, but make it crazy enough that you can address all the elements in the building. So if there's anything specific I want to call out, I have a way to address that using the grid. That's the first thing. The second thing is make sure you have the right floors in. So floor 1 and floor 2, if you have a third floor or whatever, make sure they are defined. So the first thing to start is to have your grids and the floors in. Also, if you're showing any section lines, it's always important to have them. So these are a few very important elements that are not necessarily under annotation category, but are going to help you present your construction drawings. So start with those. Then we'll go to the actual annotations. So under annotate here, we're going to start looking at these guys. You guys are good. Whenever you had any questions, just raise your hand and let me know. I'm going to pause and address that question. Okay, so the first one here you see is aligned. So that's mainly what you'll use a lot. So aligned is the easiest and simplest way of annotating stuff. So you click on that, and then you will say, okay, where I start? Is it center? Is it exterior? Is it interior? That's important to pick. The default is the center wall line, but you can press tab and change it to different things if you want. So if I'm standing here on the interior face, it's trying to pick the center line, but if I tab it, then it will go on an interior wall. So I want to do from exterior, then to interior, then to the next wall, then to exterior of the next wall. Then here I'm kind of confused where I should be on that angled wall, because it doesn't make sense to measure it from somewhere randomly in the middle. So probably it's the best to measure it somewhere to that grid, and then go to the next grid and then put it here. So usually the way dimensioning works best, I don't know what Branko and Matt has shown, but usually you have a series of line out there from outside to inside. You will have the biggest dimensions here, so that's maybe the overall. I'll just move my section line away so that's not distracting. So usually you have the biggest line here, then you would do probably the grids, then you would do another line that is addressing some of the walls. If you want to do more details, you can have another line that is addressing maybe all the windows and the breaks on your facade. So that's up to you. If it gets too much about the interior walls, then you don't need to have it on the perimeter. You can bring it inside. So I have an line. I'm just caring about what's happening on the inside. So I will start from here, go to that guy, go to this, and go there. And that's now, you see it's not perpendicular, so it's not a meaningful dimension maybe. So I'll try to make it to that corner, and I'll put it here, and I'll call it an interior dimension for me. So it's not going to be pulled out to the exterior. Or if there's something else, I don't know, that is important on your drawing, you can measure. So with dimensioning, what we're doing is trying to explain how to build this building. So if I want to go in and build that angled wall, the distance from center of this wall to center of somewhere randomly on this door is not going to give me anything. But I need to actually know, okay, what's probably the angle between this grid and that wall, and then what is the length of this actual wall, and then what is, I don't know, anything that I need to make that constructible. The other way to do some of these aligned dimensioning on singular object is just by selecting them. And then when you select an object, let's be somewhere that's a bit more clean. So when I select this, it will show me some dimensions on the drawing. So by clicking on this little guy over here, it will just put the dimension on the drawing. So that's another way of dimensioning things in Revit, but you have less control because it starts from where it shows at the beginning. You're not really doing a dimensioning or a continuous one, so it's a little bit difficult. However, you can always go in and change them before, oops, that was the wall. before actually baking them in a way. So if I click on this guy, it will be on the inside. I can click on that 2 times, it will be on the inside. Now I bake it, it's all on the inside. But it would be probably easier just to do this kind of aligned dimension. The other thing that is good to know is that, okay, now I have this, how I edit this or how I change this. Salads are not allowed. Then you will pick your dimension, you'll select your dimension, you would go to edit witness lines, click on that, then it will let you to add stuff or remove stuff. So I'm adding one more over here, probably I want to know to this corner, and then that's it. And then from this other end, I would again click on edit witness lines. From here, maybe I'll go to that exterior, and then I can probably stop it there. So whatever I want to do, I can afterwards go back and edit. I can also remove. So if I have this guy and then for some reason I don't want to have all the way to that last corner, I can go in, I can go in and select, remove, try to find that. That's a tricky corner to find, but then if you find the right point, then you can remove that. That's a line, that's probably what you're going to use the most. Any questions? All good? Okay. Next thing you need to know, okay, there are a few other things that I think I've shown you guys before, but it's good to mention again. Okay, so when you have a dimension, you can lock some of these dimensions. So let's say this 6 meter is something I want to keep always. So I'll just click on the lock. Now it's locked. If I want to move some of these grids, that 6 meter is moving with me, and the other dimensions are changing, as you can see over here. So that's another thing that is good to know. And then the last thing is the EQ that is kind of shown up, but it's under that other dimension. So whenever you have a dimension, it's giving you the option of EQ, so that where you can have equal distances between all the elements. So if you click on that, it will just do it automatically for you, and then you can go back in and say, hey, yes, it's equality text, but show me the value. So then it will show the equal values. Probably we don't want to change our stuff just randomly because we want them to be equal. It's more design driven, but if you do that, then you can go onto properties and change it to value instead of just showing the equality text. And then the last thing is, sometimes it happens that there are some tight areas like this, or something that the text is not easy to read. So you can find all other alternative solutions for them. So you can go in and move only the number around. So you see there's a dot that is referring only to that number, and then you can drag it somewhere else. So let's say it gets, and then you can bring it back, and then it should disappear or whatever. Don't do this. But anyways, if there is something that is super tight, you have issues with showing the proper dimensions, you can just move them somewhere else that is cleaner to be read. Okay. Then there are some other types of dimensioning. As you can see here, go in and play with these guys a little bit so that you know. Maybe you don't need them for this project right now, but in the future you will need them. Linear is a little bit tricky to use and difficult. It gives you hard times, but it's looking for reference points. So in the curtain wall, I have some reference points, and it let me just connect to them and do very similar to aligned. But usually when you have only walls and grids, it doesn't let you pick the proper lines that you want. So probably you're better off using the aligned. Then you got the angular, that you will pick 2 lines, and then it will give you the angle between. So if you want to say, okay, the angle between the 2 walls is this, or the grid and this wall is that, you would use this tool to define your annotation or dimension. You got the radial, which you would pick, I believe, the center of a thing, and then the extent of the radius. I don't have any radials here, but you could also do that. You have some diameters and arcs that you can address. So those are the things you want to look into. A few more things that are not necessarily dimensioning in a way that we know, but they are we are talking about, but they are useful. So Spot elevation shows where the elevations are. So if I click on this and I put it on the floor, it shows that my floor is at 0. And then if I go to my site plan and I try to put it on somewhere on my roof, you can see the number is changing. So it shows where the arrow is. It is showing the elevation of that point. There. The other thing that is super cool, is going to be simple for this project, but I'm going to show it in 3D, is the slope. So you can measure your slope. This is a single sloped roof, but if you had a curvature or anything crazy at any given point, it would calculate the slope for you, and you can place some of these to actually address what the slope is. And in a real life project, you will have roofs that are draining and have different angles on them, so it's not just a flat, simple roof. And then this is very useful to show. So those are basically all the dimensions that you have, and you can basically just go in and use all of these in your elevations and sections as well. So again, going back here, it's very important to be aware of where it's turning blue and where you're measuring from and to, and then you will get all these dimensioning. So from outside to outside to outside, or center to center to center, something that is logical and you can always follow. And then you would place it here. So one thing that Branko was mentioning is very important, is that yes, it's good to know how big this window is, how big the next window is, and what's the distance between them. But in order for me to build it, I need to know where it exists in the environment. So I need to have some idea of, okay, what's the distance between this and the exterior wall or the next door or the property line or something. So something in the middle of the room is not very helpful unless it's connected to something else that can give me a position on the site or on the building or on a given wall. So always make sure that you have good relations between the dimensions you're making in the model. Questions? Okay. Next thing, when you have dimensions in, it's coming in a certain style, certain size, and certain form, and that is something you can change. So there are a few of them you can change from the property line, like some of these stuff. Depending on what you're picking, they may be different. As you can see, the elevation mark is a bit different than the simple aligned dimensioning. But the more control you have is under, that was not the right sentence, but anyways, you have more control under this edit type tool or selecting your type. So when you have a dimension selected, you can go under here and pick what type of dimensioning style you want to use. It will change the size of the text, maybe the font, maybe the thicknesses, maybe these lines and their relationships, and make sure you are consistent all the way through your dimensioning. So you should not have one line that is this style and the other one that is the other style, unless you have a purpose behind it. Maybe you have all your very detailed interiors in something that is less obvious, so that's the style, and then you have a different style for whatever is bigger and exterior. So if there is an intention behind it, that's fine. Otherwise, make sure they're all consistent. To have more control, other than just selecting them, you can go under Edit Type. And then here you have a lot more control. You can control where your text is sitting, what is the offset, what is your text size, is it bold, what is the font I'm using, how, what is the end, are these guys dashes, are these points? All of them you can change from here. So I'm not going to go to details, but anything you want to edit and change is through here. But always remember that you're changing the existing type. So make a duplicate if you're doing something new, give it a proper name, change it to whatever you want it to be, and then apply it to anything that needs to get that type. But it gives you a lot of control. It's always good to that at the beginning of the project. You go and set all your styles, play with all of these however you need, and then just place them on all the dimensions in your project. So at the beginning, you know what you're dealing with. Okay, that was all I had to say about dimensioning. Anything else you guys want to know? Probably? No? Dimensioning? Okay, so again, just to mention it one more time, make sure you have your grids, your big walls, the angles that are important, the interiors that are important, all of those dimensioned in your drawing. And then if you click on this arrow, there's some more stuff that you can actually edit the settings. I'm not going to go into details, but if there's anything specific you want to know, it's under there. You can access it through that. Yes?
I have a question about center lines. So will it know to make a center line when you align it with the center of the wall? Or do you have to tell it to put a center line there?
So whatever object you have, especially in walls, there is a center line defined. When you want a dimension, I'm not sure if I got the question right or not, but
well, when you do dimension to a center line, you need to mark it by either like changing the line type or adding like CL, right? Does it do that for you, or do you need to tell it?
No, it just does it for you.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
So if you have a wall drawn by massing, how do you?
So same thing. If you have a wall by massing, it will give you all these points that you can tag to and do the dimension from. If it's a crazy curvature, probably your best bet is to maybe do. So going back to annotation, do some distances from specific elements, then define some angles, some arcs, and some curvature on it. Probably that's the best way to address that. Anything else? All right. Let's move on to details. Okay, so here, remember Branko was talking about you're showing 3 details in your project and all that kind of thing. So that's where you do a lot of the faking of that thing. So when you're working in Revit, you have specific stuff defined. So this is a generic wall, meaning that it does not have any details in it. If I define a wall that actually has details in it, like one of these, and when I present this in a fine or medium mode, you can see some of the detailing of where the studs are, where's the core, what's exterior, what's interior are showing up. So when I want to do a detail, it's good that my wall types are actually defined as something that actually properly is defined and makes sense. Then some of the stuff is already showing up. By changing the scale, you see the thickness of these lines are changing. So you will probably be presenting a detailed drawing in 1 to 10 or 1 to 20, probably 1 to 10. So the line thicknesses are defining based on the scale you're showing. And then you have an easier time to work with that detail you're showing. In walls, it's very easy. It attaches very cleanly. But in sections, a lot of times when you have a wall and a floor like that, they do not attach very well. You have a few ways of addressing that issue. So if you have a wall, you can say, okay, my base offset is at minus, let's say 300. It will cover a portion of that, or if you're more accurate, you can go all the way to the bottom, and then you can join them. So if you select and say join, here you can join this and that, and then this will disappear if you have the right types defined, and if you have your medium to fine showing up here. Some more details should show up. This is generic, that's why it's showing nothing, but if it was an actual wall type or a floor type, more detailing would show up. But after that, then you need to more detailing stuff on these. I'm just gonna bring them back to generic so that's not distracting. Just matching the wall types here. Okay. Okay. So under details, you have a few things that you can draw. They're not actually modeled in your drawing, but they are drawn so that you can present them. The first one is detailed lines. You can actually draw any kind of lines that you want, and they will be in your drawing as a reference. So let's say for my doors, I want to show some of the stuff that is happening inside the wall. So we just click on the detailed line, and then I do a rectangle, and I zoom in, and I draw a rectangle. That's kind of referring to the frame of my door. And similar to other stuff in Revit, you can control the dimensions and alignments and everything. So you would draw a few things here, but it's not going to show up anywhere else. It's not going to be actually in the model. It's only in that certain view that you're playing with at the time, and it's only for showing some details that are not modeled. Next thing is a region. You can do a region or a masking region. So if you want to say, okay, I have something, let's say inside the wall. Again, let's do a rectangle. I have something inside the wall that is a different material or something. You would draw a region, it will hatch it, and you can have control over it later. I'll show you how to edit the styles of these guys in a bit. And then the other thing is that you can mask stuff. So if in a view you don't want to show a portion of a wall and you want to mask it, you will do a masking and then it will mask that piece. You can then go back and hide the strokes around it and all that kind of thing. I'll show that in a second. So those are what these first two components do. And the way to edit those is by basically selecting them, and similar to other things, you can go under override graphics in view by element or by category. So if you do by category, anything in that category will be changed. If you do by element, only that a specific element will be changed. So click on the element, then you can say, okay, projection lines, maybe I don't want it to show up or want it to be white or whatever. I can define a pattern. I can change the surface pattern, that in this case is that guy, so I can probably change that to something else. I can also work on the transparency if I want to see the stuff underneath that thing that I've drawn. Then you can see it is applied, and as I change the scale, it's showing up nicely. Same thing for this guy. If I go under that element, then again I can change stuff here and get whatever I want out of this. So those are the region, and then there are other uses that you can apply these to. Let's say it's not just a wall detail, it's something on the floor you want to address, and it's an irregular shape of, I don't know, flooring, or change the material or something. That's basically how you would address those kind of things that are not really modeled in your drawing. Next one is a component. For components, there are certain things that are defined as a detail. So instead of you just going in and drawing them, you can probably download them from somewhere or load them into your project and just place them. By default, there are a few things loaded in the project, but you can load more detailed families in. Maybe a door hinge or a wall insulation or a vapor barrier, or some detailing could be brought in as a family of only a 2D drawing, and then you can place it somewhere. Again, it's not a model, it's only a line drawing, but you can place it in case you want to show it in a detailed drawing. The next thing is revision cloud. You probably won't need it in this class, but in next phase of your life, you'll use it a lot. So whenever you see a drawing and you have issues or points you want to talk about or comment on or change, you will do this, and then whoever is looking at this drawing knows that this part has been changed or is going to be changed, or there's a comment about, and it's very common to use these kind of ugly clouds on the drawings in the industry. Detail groups, I haven't used that much, and it's not very important, but you can actually group the detailing stuff that you place in, so that's how you would do that. And the last thing is installation, because a lot of times you need to show installation where it's placed. It's not a part of the wall structure, or it may differ based on where that same wall type is in your project. You have control to manually just draw your installation. It's very easy and it's very useful, especially when you're doing your detailing. It will connect nicely, and you can just draw them here like that. So if you need to show installation, that's the way to draw it if it's not in your wall type. That's all about details. Any questions?